So, when it comes to getting distortion in your voice, you gotta understand that to be able to do that, it's kind of a byproduct. I mean, um, it requires you to be grounded. It requires you to, um, I say you gotta be grounded, but it's like it's very easy to kind of misunderstand. Uh, I don't know. Well, I'm trying to get the sound that I like. I like Kurt Cobain's voice. Um, the best way I can kind of explain, if you want to sound like him, if you want to get distortion in your voice, in your vocals, um, the best way I can kind of explain, like the way I go about it is like, uh, I'm not being a copycat, but at the same time, I feel like you've got to kind of become like him in the sense of like, um, you've got to basically do everything that he does. You got to think the way he thinks. You know, the way you see the world, your beliefs. And it's got to be genuine as well. You know, um, but then you might disagree with some of the things he says or believes in, and you can still get, you know, your vocals can still sound good if like, mm, it's hard to explain. But when I say you got to be grounded, I mean maybe that's the wrong word. I don't know. Um, I mean, you got to be a man. Not saying that you can't do it if you're a woman, but what I mean by you got to be a man is like, um, you know, you got to be real. You got to, you know, it's got to come from a place. Like the kind of person who can do vocals like that, you got to understand that like, if you're like a loser, if you're a loser, if you're, you won't be able to do vocals like that. Um, um, it's really hard to explain, but I feel like the best way to kind of explain it. Well, I mean, the way I go about it is, you know, I think I agree with a lot of the things that Kurt Cobain stands for, and you know, I'm constantly working on myself. You know, be becoming the person that I want to be, the kind of person that I believe that you know um, that I agree with. I guess is the best way to explain it. You know, everything I do and I say, I believe to be right. Kind of, in a sense, it's hard to explain. Um, but I feel like it's a byproduct. You know, you gotta sing hard. You gotta yell. You know, you got to shout. You know, when somebody says hard to scream, it's like, um, you know, I don't think of it as a technique because as soon as you start, if you're gonna try and go into like, if you're gonna try and use a technique to scream like that, it's not really a technique. It's like, if you're gonna try and use a technique to scream, and that's when you start sounding like someone like from Suicide Silence. That's not really the sound that I'm going for. You know, it's not like this um, kind of inhumane kind of sound. It sounds human, if anything. You know, I'm not really. I don't dislike this kind of sound, but like pig squeals, things like that. I don't. Um, I just think it's a bit ridiculous. It's not really my gig. It's not really. I mean, I do like it. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's not something that I care to. I don't care to be able to do that. For me, those seem like party tricks. They're not really. Like I said, they can sound good in a song, but that's just not the genre of music that I want to be able to perform. That's not, you know, I want my music to be, I want to be known as a good songwriter. I want to be, just my opinions on, the way I think about, my opinions on things, Um, I just think it's a lot more cool to be able to scream like someone like Kurt Cobain compared to someone like from Suicide Silence. It's just not the kind of I just don't want to be the guy from Suicide Silence. It's just not. It's not my gig. It's not what I'm going for. I'm a lot more attracted, and I think it's a lot cooler to be like Kurt Cobain. I mean, I'm not saying I want to be like Kurt Cobain. I want to be myself, but at the same time, I want to be inspired by Kurt Cobain, because I think like his music is really authentic. It's really genuine, you know, and it's really respectful, you know. I just think it's a bit silly to try and be someone like the guy from Suicide Silence. That kind of music, it's just not. I just think people kind of lose the plot. I think, and they end up. I'm not saying the music's bad. Like I do like Suicide Silence, that kind of music, but I just feel like people who end up doing that kind of music have kind of lost the plot. You know what I mean? It's just a bit silly. You know, it's just a bit ridiculous. I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but in a way, it kind of is. Um, I mean, the point of this recording was to teach you how to put distortion in your vocals. I just feel like it's got to be a byproduct. Do you know what I mean? You've got to shout, but um, I feel like if I'm telling you like how to get distortion in your vocals, I feel like it's almost like I'm just telling you to shout. Basically, you just got to shout. You know. Um, it's easy to overthink it or overdo it, or kind of overcompensate, or basically try and as soon as you start trying to shout instead of just shouting, that's when it doesn't work. That's when you don't get distortion in your vocals. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to sound bad. I mean, it might sound bad, but the point of this is to try and get distortion in your vocals. That's the, I guess, ultimate sound that you need to go for, that you're looking to go for, that you're trying to get, that you're trying to go for. So yeah, how to get distortion in your vocals, you just shout, basically. I don't really think of it like that, to be honest, but I mean, that makes sense. So, but like I said, I like to think of it like um, it's just a byproduct, you know, of shouting or singing, if you know. Um, I'm really into punk music, and I feel like I I don't even like to say that I'm a singer. I'd rather just say I'm someone who yells or shouts, you know, or screams. I prefer that kind of punk mentality, that punk kind of thinking, that punk kind of style. So, you know, I just feel like the word singing and punk don't really go together. Do you know what I mean? John Lydon calls it anti-singing, and that's sort of an alright kind of way of thinking about it, or way to thing to call it. Um, yeah, it's just shouting. You know, I feel like the way you think about this kind of thing is gonna have an effect on how you sound and your ability to be able to scream, or you have distortion in your vocals. So, just something to think about. All right, bye.